Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Liberal White Dudes. I'm Andrew.
I'm Jared.
I'm AJ.
We are Liberal White Dudes. We have a special guest today. His name is...
I'm Steve.
He is also
Hi,
a
everybody.
liberal white dude. He feels certain ways about our topic tonight. But before we get into it, a little quick news since our last show. They tried to pass a stimulus and also a defense bill, and Trump blew them both up, said no, and then went golfing. Merry Christmas to the United States of America.
Jesus Christ.
As Steve would say, they don't care.
If you die.
Yeah. It's good tagline for the Republican Party.
Yep.
All right.
And it's on brand.
Yes.
It's on brand for sure.
Tonight's topic is
If you don't die, it proves you're tougher than everyone and you're a real man.
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
there you go.
A lot of masculinity
Hadn't considered
floating
that.
around in that circle. Nobody tougher, obviously, than this administration.
Oh yeah,
Full of
Nobody.
tough
Clearly.
guys
so much
doing-
machismo.
Yeah. tough
Everybody
things.
says so. All the
Um,
best people.
Manly men doing manly things. Tonight's topic, communism / socialism / capitalism. Wow, got a slash sale tonight.
We're slashing everything.
One of the big reasons we're bringing this up is some people on the internets, they're not always complimentary when it comes to, putting your creative work out there. And some people have been calling us communists, commies for short. And
Yeah.
it shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what communists are. So I want to talk a little bit about that first. Communists want everything run by the state. Everything is owned by the state, everything's run by the state, and it does not in any way really resemble true socialism, which we do.
Yeah, it doesn't
That's
even
correct.
really resemble socialism, which is the thing that's funny about it. That it's
Yeah.
conflated so much.
Yeah. Those
I
two-
think it's also important to note that no nation really throughout history has ever actually achieved a true communist state as per like the definition. Like they never actually got there anyways.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
close.
Socialism has not been really worked out.
Well,
it's not actually been
yeah,
fully
but
functional. at
Communism
pretty much
hasn't
any
been
point.
worked out either. I mean, it's like
But yeah, no.
the state takes control of everything, and the people who are in control of everything are like, I mean, this is kind of awesome. We kind of have unchecked power here. Let's do all the things. As opposed
Yeah.
to, let's run a functioning government.
Let's just do
It
a bunch
just
of
kind
terrible
of
things.
Yeah. It replaces one oligarchy with a different oligarchy.
Yeah.
And Marx's whole thing about the withering away of the state in this final stages of communism, that will never happen.
Yeah. And it goes.
It will
Right.
never happen. Power like nature abhors a vacuum.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
no kidding.
it's not it's just as utopian a nightmare as libertarianism.
It flies in stark contrast to human nature.
Yes,
I mean-
both of those things
Right.
do.
Absolutely every experiment I've ever read, of course, the Stanford prison experiment being an extremely famous one, is that when you give humans power, they're like, wow, I don't want to not have this anymore. We're seeing an extreme example of that in, what's that country? The United States right now with
Currently.
our current president trying to hang on to it. So we're not communists here. There's sort of a nice idea there that we could all somehow be subjectively tested to realize what our worth was and just be paid that by some benefactor while we did whatever it was we were good at. I don't see that ever working out as people. So no, we're not friggin' communists.
We are not.
No.
And I'm
No.
not even a communist.
Yeah.
Right, I was gonna say,
He's
yeah.
not a communist. That's how.
Steve's not even
I'm left of all of you probably. We'll find out tonight, but it sounds like that may be the case.
So you do declare yourself a socialist, Steve. Why is
Yes,
that?
I joined the Democratic Socialists of America, and if the secret police is watching this video a few years from now, I want to make clear that I have since realized that it doesn't work, and I've joined whatever organization it is I'm supposed to join by now to stay out of the camps.
I am now a faithful party member of TBD.
Of what? Yeah, of
I'll fix it in post.
Dubbing the party here. I'm a faithful member of whatever the party is.
And
They are
could not
correct.
support our great leader.
Who is beyond reproach and a member of the good guys
Yes, there you go.
who fight the bad guys.
Yeah.
And I am pro good guys, and I am firmly opposed to the bad guys.
As a baseline for socialism, that I think all of us, even though we have differing meters as far as where we believe socialism has a place in our society. As a baseline for socialism, believing that the government is capable and should be providing services to every American based on our just fundamental needs like healthcare and jobs where possible and standard of living, and then also regulations over business in order to continue to up our way of life. Is that hit everybody?
I would say that, yeah, I mean, I consider myself certainly a democratic socialist. I would say it's not that, I mean, how I feel is not the need to create an all-powerful government bureaucracy. And we don't want a big corporate bureaucracies either. It's really that we just want any, social economic decisions to be made by those that are affected most by those decisions.
And an important part of that, like I think the current thinking among modern day socialists tends to be, well, we tried the centralized state model where the state owns all the property and gives out the jobs and plans the economy. That didn't work. It's been put into practice. It didn't work the way it was supposed to. So now a lot of the thinking that I hear is more along the lines of workers should own the companies that they work for, or they should have a place on the board of directors. They should have control. They should have democratic involvement in the direction of not just society and not just voting in elections, but in the companies that they work for.
Yeah, that was kind of the big thing, is that one of the bigger pushes is obviously this is like workers owning what they work for, right? So
market socialism.
Yeah, market socialism. Yeah, basically, where worker cooperatives is one of the things that people do now that's sort of in that vein, basically where everybody who's working in the company owns the company, and then all the processes that are like any changes or any big decisions, all that stuff is done democratically. Everybody gets to choose, has their say in what happens, and then it's majority rules on that.
Yeah.
And
well, again, it's getting back to those that are being most affected by the decisions that are being made should be in the room. They should be in the room where those decisions are being made.
Have any of you been in a large corporate meeting where good things came out of it? Just as a throwing it out there, I feel like there's like that's a great idea in a general sense, and I honestly believe that every company that somebody works for, like, shareholdership should be part of it. Like, that makes sense. Have skin in the game. Companies do better when that's the case. But as far as
people want to continue working for them,
that's also part of it. It does. Yeah.
Yeah. And decisions made by committee, man, that's just a terrible place. I mean, that's just a terrible place to be in. You sit in a room.
But also the flip side of that also is that, have you ever worked for a terrible boss?
Yeah.
Who does not know what the hell they're doing?
Yeah.
Whose decision making is actively costing you future employment opportunities by driving the company into the ground in ways that everyone who works there would be able to say, this is a terrible idea. Were they allowed input into the decision-making processes?
Yes.
Well,
I work in entertainment, and I've experienced this quite a lot over the last 15 years or so. As
a sub note, if I did currently experience that, I am not saying that I do.
As a footnote.
I'm certainly not saying that about my current employment situation, which is ACES.
Yes. As is mine. Andrew, I get your point. I do see that. I think that it's just I don't think that that encapsulates every idea about how market socialism or democratic socialist society can work, but that is the crux of it, essentially. That's the important piece to it. Like, how that works takes a lot more cooperation, it's going to take a lot more just that cooperation over time. It's not something that can happen quickly, because unlike communism, socialists don't really support violent, in by and large, violent
that's the whole
takeovers
point. Like the whole
of
beginning.
the,
That's the
government.
beginning of communism.
Right. It's
as
more
per Karl
of
Marx's revolution.
Right. It's more about getting in there democratically and working our way in by showing people that these policies work for everyone, and that's why we should move towards that.
Don't the loudest idiots normally win, though, in a room like that? I mean, I'm just asking the question, you know.
Right.
Very Glenn Beck style. I'm just asking a question. I don't have a feeling on it.
I guess the hope is that the loudest idiot in the room is still working for the people that are most affected and marginalized, even if they're a giant idiot. It's just about getting those pieces in place regardless. I mean, human error is going to be a component, but we got to get the structure in place.
Yeah, I think
is the idea.
I'm reminded of the, I think it's usually attributed to Winston Churchill, the quote that democracy is the worst form of government except for all the other ones. Yes. And I think that applies to this too. Like, you know, as opposed to top-down decision-making versus bottom-up, I think bottom-up tends to be, over time, the better decision-making than top-down, even though both of them have flaws and shortcomings.
Yeah. It's very hard to get bottom up because there's no consensus, you know. That's the thing with about a big room full of folks when you're trying to even make a decision about your, you know, the color on your logo. It's like, you know, there's somebody who's staunchly against orange, even though everybody else feels like orange. Yeah, that's the clearly the highlight for the yellow logo.
Well, if you choose orange, then you're a bad person.
See, well,
well, see, that's the thing about the democratic process, though, is that it doesn't. One you know, person that's holding, like, can't really hold the line. It's not like a jury. It's not like a. It's
not always, yeah.
Not always, right? It's more like a. It's more like a. You know, like a voting process where, like, you just majority rules. Like, that's kind of part of the bag.
I guess the question is, you know, how convincing are the loudest idiots in the room?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they might take up a lot of the debate time, but how, in the end, how convincing are they in terms of making their case?
Well, you've seen 12 Angry Men. I mean, sometimes they turn the whole thing. Spoilers. It's been out forever.
A little while, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's also a component to this that's, you know, part of our society already embraces so many aspects of socialism, you know, Social Security and, you know, public schools. And so it's like we see so many benefits in these, but for some reason can't see the larger benefits in extending that. And so I think that while you're always going to have that problem of that loudest idiot in the room, potentially, you know, turning the tide on things, again, you have to kind of start somewhere. And we really got, you know, so the platform's, I believe, mission at this point is just to get public opinion back on the side of we can all benefit from this if we're all working together this way, like we do with public schools. Everyone agrees it's bipartisan. Public schools should be a thing. Public education is a thing.
Not that we do that
we all
the best
agree.
way possible, obviously.
Not that we do it the best way, but we've all agreed that is, or, you know, that the fire department should show up if your house is on fire. Everyone agrees that. Everyone thinks that should be a thing.
I think you should have to pay for it.
There is a section that comes.
I don't want my tax money going to the fire department.
Yeah, I mean, there are portions.
What have they ever done for me? I don't need them. What have they ever done for me?
What have they ever done for me?
So it gets for me, anyways, as a democratic socialist, I think for me it gets hard for me to see that blurred line where I'm just like, why is it so difficult to see the same benefits in other industries and other parts of our economy? Why does it only apply to this? You know, why does it only help here?
I can answer that from my perspective. I consider myself, I never label myself a socialist mostly because I don't think the government does anything well. Like there's nothing, and I don't think private industry necessarily does it better, and in a lot of respects it does not because they have a profit motive, right? There's a lot of things like healthcare that should not have a profit motive. There shouldn't be, is it more expensive for me to keep you alive than it is to let you die? And the calculus there, that shouldn't be a thing. You know, somebody shouldn't be deciding whether grandma lives or whether they pay the rent, right? Like for those things, for me, that's a non-issue. That should definitely be somehow government run. But government doesn't do anything well. We're you know, they don't pay well, so we don't attract the best and brightest, or is it, any number of bureaucracies and red tape so that they don't have the kind of liability that they, normally do? It's one of the reasons I'm a capitalist, and I believe in capitalism, regulated capitalism, because it drives from innate human greed. I think one thing that every human has shown throughout time is that we're selfish and greedy, and we don't want to be, and it's nice not to be, I guess. But
yeah,
I guess the updraft of that is that there's a cap to it. There's a point at which it stops being a functioning thing. There's a point at which there is not more capital to accrue, and people just start, balling out. Like,
Bezos might find it eventually. He's not there yet, apparently.
But that's what I'm saying is that like people like Bezos who treat their workers horrendously and make billions and billions of dollars, like that sort of thing, to me, shouldn't be a thing that we continue to perpetuate and continue to support or
that sounds
prop
like
up.
Leftist propaganda.
It is.
It certainly is.
Amazon workers
From me.
get way
With
better
any
than
luck.
McDonald's workers. Pick somebody like Walmart, who is atrocious.
But still, right? That's one of those things where it's like it feels like there needs to be a means of correcting that. And the reason that all the issues that like you were talking about with the socialist, worker owned thing are also issues with democracy. Like those two things, like the loudest idiot in the room will get a lot of time. Like that is true. We're dealing with that right
And
now.
the loudest
Exactly.
The loudest idiot will especially get a lot of the time if they have millions of dollars funding a campaign.
But that's part of it.
Amplify.
That's part of it, and that's one of the big
idiocy.
things. That's actually one of the big things that I've heard recently
You get bigger speakers, certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly,
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that's really sold me too, is that capitalism isn't built to work in tandem with a government that supports its people. It works with a government that works in tandem with businesses. So it creates because people, basically the people that that succeed and grow from capitalism in that way also have a huge effect on the political stance because they can pay for a lot more than poor people can. There's a reason that
rich people can pay for more than poor
say,
people can.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say there's a lot of aspects of socialism that support business too. I mean, that's a common thing that comes from the right that says that we want to abolish private businesses, and that's not at all what we're saying. It's
social democracy kind of depends on having a robust and diversified economy.
It does.
It does. A prosperous business community in order to fund a lot of these social initiatives. Now you can get into all this modern monetary theory stuff, which I'm not an expert in. I haven't read the books, but the basic idea is that we all hear this metaphor that government is like a household. It needs to balance the budget because that's what a household does. And the whole point of that is that's a terrible metaphor because government prints money. Households cannot print money. So the government can do things in a macroeconomic sense that a household can't do. And we should stop thinking of money as being a finite resource.
That it is a finite resource.
We have to take it in tax money, and we can only do the programs that we can afford from being in the tax money. That's not how it's supposed to work, according to this theory, which I am not an expert in.
Well, I think that one of the things that about democratic socialism is that it stems from the idea that there's different motivations other than that innate greed in humans.
Yeah, I think
and the belief that exists, that really does exist in people.
I think that there is also an innate drive towards community. I think that there's.
I knew you'd say that.
Sorry, Steve. I think we have, since the dawn of the Reagan era, we've had which I was born in 1975. I don't remember anything before Reagan, but there's been this real strong. It's kind of always been there, I think, in America, but it's been this hyper emphasis on individualism at the expense of community, where it's this idea that we're all just these atomized individuals that have no logical connection to one another. And I really think that is an ideologically driven way of looking at the world, because when you emphasize individualism at the expense of community, you are also devaluing working together, cooperating. As a labor union, for example, you're devaluing that and telling people that doesn't work, it'll never work, when all of human civilization is based on the idea that we are on some level cooperating together in order to survive against a hostile natural world that has 8 million different ways to kill us. And thanks to climate change, there are like 4 million more on the way, possibly within our lifetimes.
But at least a couple million dying off too, so it's not all bad, Steve.
Yeah.
Oh,
and trillions of dollars.
If we can hold it to a couple million, I think we'll be in terrific shape. The way things are going.
Yeah, that would be a very healthy number that like Trump was targeting for with COVID. We're okay with a very healthy number of millions.
Millions of people dead. That's probably fine.
That's probably okay.
What? Yeah, I mean, we had a little chat about unions in the pre-show. I go back and forth on unions having both worked for and then with some of them. It's such a tough thing because, again, that is the same kind of thing. There's a power structure there. There's a power that unions are granted, based on having power, right? The power to walk off the job and the power to shut down an assembly line or any number of things against.
And there's a hierarchy within the union as well. There's a power structure within the union,
right? And ultimately, someone's going to
may not be very responsive to the rank and file at the bottom.
Yeah, they might be like, you have to walk off the job, and you're like, I'm kind of paycheck to paycheck at the moment. Walking off the job didn't really work for me.
It's a lot more likely that they will not want you to walk off the job because they are getting paid pretty well up at the top of the power structure of the union.
I just feel like,
in my experience,
not currently.
I just feel like
not currently, of course.
Somewhere embedded in socialism, though, I believe is the potential to create a structure that does work. I know it sounds far-fetched. I know that hippie logic, believing that there's other motivations other than greed and survival. But I do believe that as an evolved society, looking how far we've come, I think it could be there. I think it's attainable, and I think that's why we continue to fight for it.
I think we have.
We have to.
Go ahead, Steve.
I think that the cultural pendulum has swung so far to the side of individualism that there's a significant loneliness problem in a lot of Western capitalist societies, and I think that if we can just kind of even things out a little bit, even without swinging too far towards communitarianism, then I think a lot of people would be a lot happier with more human connection, depending on the humans they connect with, of course. But I think that we've gone so extreme in one direction that there's a real hunger for getting back to feeling like part of something, connected to other humans, contributing to a community, doing something that's valued by other humans that isn't just wasting your life on some bullshit.
Right.
Well said. So many of us do.
I am.
I think there's a case study after case study just on GoFundMe. I think if you look at the number of things that happened there that you're like, this is something, there should be a safety net here for 80% of the people who are on there. Any number of things, whether it's unemployment or, food scarcity or, medical bills, obviously. I mean, that's just such a huge one that's gotten so dumb and out of control in this country.
I think like, but there's 80 different ways to be a socialist, and I don't claim to know all of them. I haven't read all of the isms. I don't know if you say, oh, this is a so-and-so ism, then I have no idea who you're talking about. But to me, the concept, like the basic concept we should have is there should be a floor in society past which you are not allowed to fall. And in order to have that, I think you have to have a ceiling past which you're really not allowed to rise. And that was kind of the basic idea of FDR and the New Deal was we're going to catch all the people that the safety net is missing because there's too big of holes in it. And in order to do that, we're going to effectively tax out of existence any income above a certain level.
Right.
And that there's an extreme social hierarchy that just got flattened out, not completely, obviously, and especially because America was still pretty racist back in the New Deal era. There was still, major.
Still pretty racist now.
Yeah.
Yeah, still doing that.
Still pretty racist. It was
Still
even
rocking
more
that.
racist
Still
then.
on brand.
But there's, this idea that this extreme hierarchy got flattened out to the point where, this great big middle bulged out where it wasn't before, and you had a period of pretty, strong prosperity. Not across the board, but a lot more people lived a lot better lives than they might have otherwise.
A burgeoning middle class. Yeah.
And then the baby boomers came along and pulled up
Ruined
all the
it.
ladders behind them because they
By
thought
their
that was just the way
bootstraps.
the world was.
Yeah. Yeah. By their bootstraps.
Yeah.
By their bootstraps.
All by themselves because they're
Yeah.
good people who deserve it.
You bet.
Because they
You
try.
Because they're good individuals.
We just lost a
with
whole
no
segment
connection
of
to
our
anything
audience.
else.
The Lord has blessed them greatly.
Right now, they're clicking off the
Hallelujah.
from their TiVo.
From their Rokus.
That's how boomers are. I guess I don't know.
All of them across the board, 100%. It's entirely true. The entire group identity is completely identical.
Yes,
Thank
all
you.
of you.
In case anybody was sitting at home thinking, "Not this boomer." # not this boomer. Steve
Yeah.
made it clear that you too.
Hashtag
All
Also this
groups,
boomer.
all groups are defined by their essentialized characteristics and
Yes,
stereotypes.
exactly.
100% across the board. That's how the world works, you see.
Did I mention this is liberal white dudes?
Read the title.
All right. Well, actually, we have come to the end of our segment tonight.
Oh, we have?
Yeah, it's a half-hour show,
That's
man.
it. We're
Oh.
rocking out.
Were you still having
We can have
fun?
you
Can I
back,
just
Steve.
can I squeeze in one more thing about
Squeeze
unions
it
that I
in.
wanted to get back to? In my experience in the workplace, the existence of unions, the threat of possible unionization that will get you more than what you would get if the company just compromised and gave you something in between, that gives you a better life. I've had it where just the possibility that we might unionize got us concessions from the workplace that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. We didn't get everything we would have gotten if we had unionized, but they threw us just enough,
To not
enough
unionize.
bones that it improved things enough to where it kind of killed off the union momentum. So even if you don't actually unionize, having the possibility present is often enough to improve your life as a working person.
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of the cornerstone ideas of socialism in order to democratize the workplace. And this is true of a lot of Western Europe too, is they have very strong labor unions that sort of balance out the power between employees and employers.
Who wants to
And
be
that's
like
why-
Western Europe? Those cheese-eating surrender monkeys? That's a line from The Simpsons. I don't know.
Germany has very strong unions too. And,
Just a little.
They get August
So-
off, right? Isn't that a French thing? Like they just don't work in August or something? I don't know.
I don't know.
We're too much of a hard-working people, a stout,
Yeah.
manly men folk.
we
Buy our
can take
bootstraps.
care of ourselves. We're self-sufficient and independent, and that's what a man is.
Hey, see, now you're getting
We
it.
don't need no damn unions.
I
By the
knew
way,
you'd come around.
when we were talking before about how the squad, for example, half of them are Midwestern. You know why? You know why socialism can take place in urban parts of the Midwest? Labor unions, my friends.
Enormous labor
The
unions.
lasting legacy of labor unions
And
is why
organized
socialism
crime.
is viable in Midwestern cities. Because
Interesting.
people join unions and they get like,
We should do a
it's better
unions
if we work
episode.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
should
should.
start
We
the
should have
clock
Steve
on
back
Steve.
on.
I should have started the
We
clock on
gotta
Steve
go.
when you said one more thing. All right.
We gotta go.
1 out of 5 figs for communism. I'm gonna go ahead and go with 4 out of 5 figs for socialism.
Give it all 5.
And,
I can have my 5 figs.
Mine as well.
Lots of figs for capitalism. In your face, commies.
Less figs for me.
I don't mean you guys. I mean the commies that are
actual
watching.
commies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there are so many in
Which we are
America.
not.
Yeah, we have so many commies.
It's rampant. McCarthy.
Also, I'd like to apologize. We've run out of time again. We will not be able to have AOC.
Alexandria.
I wore my shirt for her.
Her AOC, the AOC rep.
Yeah.
Next time.
On this particular program, she is in the Zoom waiting room, but yeah, I mean, we're a half an hour show.
Can't do it
This is
today.
what it is.
Yeah.
We had Steve today. We ran out of time.
Yep.
Someone
So,
in chat
I'm
says
sorry,
5 out
I
of 5
talked too
figs for
much.
Steve.
yeah.
I talked too much.
Yeah,
I'm
talk to
sorry.
him about unions offline there.
Yeah, there you go.
Follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. And subscribe to us on this YouTube.
Subscribe.
Thanks, everybody.